Welcome to another episode of Born to Do It. Today we're going to be talking about business and spirituality and blending the two and unique alchemical fusion. And I've got the perfect guest to help us make that transition into unlocking more spirituality and adding it into our business structure. Welcome to Heroic Leadership Coach Andrea Winn. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Stella, and hello, everyone.
How are you doing today? What's the worst? What's the worst? What's the first word that comes to mind?
Ooh, well, the first word that comes to mind is really good.
Really
It's
good.
been a really inspiring day, including having a little chat with you before this was also a really pleasant experience.
It's the uplift. When we have people that are like minded, it shifts the tone. And I think a lot of the business owners that, when they jump into creating new business structures, the entrepreneurial path, it's that excitement of sharing their ideas with like minded individuals. But I'll start the tone with, what is spirituality to you? And how have you approached spirituality before we start talking about the business side of things?
Ooh, okay. Well, I have been a deeply spiritual person for as long as I can remember. I was brought up in a Tibetan Buddhist community in the United States. My parents got involved when I was around 5. So I was deeply immersed in spirituality, started meditating when I was around 6, and have just found myself deeply drawn to spirituality. So specifically, I got really immersed in Tibetan Buddhism until I was in, I think it was my late 30s, and I had a Christian awakening on top of that. And so then for 5 years, just really heavily immersed myself in the Christian world, including being baptized a Catholic. And I would say that I have not fared well in religious communities. I seem to have a nasty little habit of getting kicked out. So, so basically, I practice um, spirituality, both with some religious practices that I learned that I have found helpful, but not within the context of any formal religion. And I also, um, I guess, since about 2020, I think that was a real turning point year for many of us. I got involved with teachings around archangels and dragons and unicorns. So now I have really been heavily, really integrating all of these different forms of spirituality together, so that I would say I have a very alive spiritual life, including, and I know we're going to talk about this later, but the practice of my business is also a huge part of my spiritual practice at this point. So I'm wondering if that answers your question, or was there any element that I may have missed?
Were there any unexpected detours that shifted your perspective on spirituality? I know you mentioned that a lot of religion still has a very fixed mindset when it comes to spirituality and our connection to the divine. But were there unexpected twists and turns on the journey that made you think, oh, wow, now I understand better. Now I understand why, certain aspects of life are the way that they are and how I can help shift them.
Hmm. Well, well, first of all, I mean, when you bring up unexpected detour, I just have to first acknowledge that the Christian awakening was a very unexpected detour, because really I was pretty anti-Christian up until then. I was a kid growing up in the US, in schools having to say the Pledge of Allegiance,
Yeah.
to one nation under God. And it did not sit well with me having to put my hand over my heart and to be talking about God. So it was extremely unexpected to have the Christian awakening, given how I had such a large chip on my shoulder. So when I think about that first response that came up in me, I think it speaks to a greater fluidity that is needed for honestly pursuing our own spiritual path. My entrance way in was, in a very unique way. It's not like I just decided to go to church or something. I was actually guided to read the Narnia stories. and
Okay.
Narnia, was introduced to Aslan, and then years later, I found out that Aslan represented Jesus, and so I really feel like that sort of subtly got me into more openness towards Christianity, and then worked with a soul coach whose guide was named Jesus Emmanuel, but was very different sort of flavor than the traditional Jesus that we know in church. So then I really opened up to that guy, Jesus Emmanuel. And then from there, I attended a movie series, like popular movies that were being shown at this church. And like they had, it was movies that had a theme of redemption. And so
Okay.
that's, I guess, what technically got me into a church, was going to this movie series. So it was just these little stepping stones that required me to open to what was truly arising within me, that was from a place of love and from a place of spirituality, because it went against every grain of how I had grown up. So I think that there is something there in that story, just in that twist and turn, about the nature of true spirituality, which is being willing to let go of outdated, limiting beliefs, and opening to, when something is arising in your heart, and having the courage and the willingness to allow exploration of something, even if if it just like seems like the last place you'd ever want to go. Just that willingness to explore. It doesn't mean you need to go there, but that willingness to explore a spiritual calling that's coming up in your heart. So, yeah, that's really what's coming to mind. And I think, even though it was about getting into a formal religion, I think that there are some valuable little nuggets in that one story about opening to spirituality.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the word story. I think the power of storytelling is something that our ancestors have used, that our teachers have used, our parents have used, and will continue to use going forward, because it's in those stories where we're able to convey the bigger messages through adding the voices to the characters and their descriptions and every choice that they're making. Even the descriptions in the movies and books where the character was wearing purple, the character was wearing yellow. These are choices that signify an emotion, that signify a state of mind. Everything is just so connected and so interlinked, but it's through the storytelling that we're able to convey the big messages in a way that's more easily digestible, I suppose, or it's easier to talk about the big feelings, the big topics in a way that makes us appreciate the finer details. But it's quite interesting that you're mentioning movies and in the theme of redemption as well, because I did my master's degree in film and television. So movies have been my primary method of learning about life for a very long time.
Mm.
And it's it's a domain of storytelling that I really love, because it connects us while being disconnected. I think being disconnected from the external narrative. We're connected for 2 hours to the vision of someone, and they have completely captured our attention. And if they've created something, especially in alignment with their higher self, they can really bring that shift, that change of heart. So when you leave that movie theater, it's almost like you have taken the journey of metamorphosis that the creator had, and they
Yeah.
were able to give that to you for 2 hours, which is very powerful. And I think spirituality allows us to create a shift in narrative when it comes to our own lives, when we allow it to touch us, I suppose, when we're not just externally looking, but we buy the ticket and we go into the theater. And the theater could be, anything. Could be the library, could be the bookstore, could be just researching on social media. But we purchase the ticket and we commit to it. We say, I'm going to stay, I'm going to watch, I'm going to see where this takes me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
So I had a thought or two about what spirituality means, and you mentioned the dragons and the unicorns and the archangels and the angels and even the demons. There's everyone can anything and everything can teach us things about life if we
Mm.
allow ourselves to open up to learning from people, from ideas, from places that are foreign to us, because that's how we learn. We allow the foreign to become something that we're more familiar with. But these are keywords that kind of come to mind when I think of spirituality today: light, hope, love, joy, faith, peace, unity. Do you think these are the words that most people connect to spirituality?
Ooh, well, spirituality is so unique that I think that probably if we got 10 people in the room, we could probably have 10 different sets of words. So I do think that spirituality is very unique. And I think that's one of the things that's so beautiful about it. I'm thinking back to when I did my master's of education in counseling psychology. One of the courses that I took was called multicultural counseling, and we looked at how to do counseling with people of different cultures, because so many things in Western society are geared towards doing something with white heterosexual men. Like there's this sort of unity, not kind of unity that you and I usually talk about, but it's just like um, expecting everybody to fall under one very specific category of people. So this multicultural counseling course, I found it to be a spiritual experience, unlike any of the other courses that I took. And it's because in order for somebody of one culture to communicate with somebody of another culture, whether they have a common language or not, they have to go beyond any kinds of sort of assumptions or anything like that. You need to be able to communicate, like from the depth of your soul, what it is that you're trying to say to the other person of another culture in a very open way, so that they might be able to understand what you're saying. And it takes more conversation in order to be able to communicate with someone of another culture. And so I just think that that is so powerful. And that's why I discovered, multicultural situations, they're going to be more spiritual because of that letting go of assumptions that's necessary to really connect heart to heart. And so that's why I think that, if we had 10 people in the room, we would have 10 different sets of words associated. And Stella, you dropped kind of a powerful word in your last statement, that it can include demons. And I would like to invite you to share a little bit about what moved you to also include the word demons. Because I think, I feel like that's not a good thing, just to sort of like let something so powerful go without being acknowledged. So since you had the courage to bring something in that was pretty powerful, I would like to ask you what you were thinking when you said that.
So there's this show, again, bringing movies and TV series, but there's this show from Amazon, and Good Omens, it's called, and it has at the center an angel and a demon, and they're working side by side. They're placed on Earth, and throughout the series, they're showing their involvement, because these are eternal beings. They just reincarnate. They help humanity. They help in whatever way they can. They help with the creation of Earth, in terms of that kind of holistic way of looking at spirituality and the birth of Earth. And there was a very powerful episode that explained that sometimes when we look at angels as the beings that save us, sometimes they follow structures. Sometimes they think, oh, that we can only do this because of the structures. We believe this is the best course of action. But it's actually sometimes the anti-heroes that are willing to go against the system, that are willing to change some of the protocols of the system. And that's why they get kind of banished from
Mm,
the originals, from the system,
yeah.
from the garden, from the kingdom, however you want to call it. And it has to do with them going challenging the people on top. And sometimes the people that challenge the systems get a bad rep. And I've talked about this in some of my videos, that just like humans have different levels of consciousness, so do other beings, including angels and demons. And if you are with that mindset of following the structures, following the same script, the learning will stop. So at some point, if you see an opportunity that, just because something is the rule, it's not always applicable in situations. Sometimes there are exceptions. Sometimes the rule has to change. And the change makers will sometimes get a bad rep for trying to change the system because it's how we've done it for so long. But without making these changes, there wouldn't be any evolution.
Mm.
And from my experience watching tarot readers and people that are channeling messages, there is very strong connection between us individuals here that are on earth working with both angels from the light and demons from the dark to remain in that balance so we can bring justice in a very corrupted system. And sometimes the light beings cannot support us with that justice the same way that the demons can, because we're dealing with levels of corruption that are beyond we can comprehend in terms of evilness, if that kind of makes sense. Probably a detour to your question, but it's, I think if we were to be truly enlightened beings, we cannot just remain in the light. And in order for us to truly help people that are in the dark, we need to be able to be in the dark without being of the dark and without losing ourselves in the dark. And in order for us to understand what it means to be in the dark without being of the dark, we must learn from the teachers of the dark, the teachers that can be found in the dark, rather.
Okay. Well, that was a very powerful response to my question. And I wonder if I may just, like just sort of also add just a little more, like a further perspective on it that maybe just would even flesh out what you said.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
So when you were talking about people who challenge, unhealthy systems being, um, like seen as like demons, they're actually, that is the word that's used. They are demonized.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that you brought that forward because that actually is the word. And so, in that case, it's a healthy action to be challenging an unhealthy system.
Yep.
Like when I worked to bring light to some very dark stuff happening in the Buddhist community that I grew up in, I was demonized. People didn't want to hear what I had to say because I was speaking from the light. So the demonizing is a way of shutting down the
Yep.
light. So I like to distinguish that from um, less evolved demons.
Mhm.
And specifically, what I would like to just offer as just a sort of like a sort of further like perspective for this part of the conversation is some work that I did for a number of years. It was a practice called feeding your demons. And this was put out by a Tibetan Buddhist teacher named Lama Tsultrim Allione. And it's a beautiful practice where we are able to encounter our own demons. And so the idea being there is that there can be parts of ourselves that we're really uncomfortable with, maybe an angry part or a
Mhm.
destructive part. And, traditionally in our culture, like even in stories of heroes and everything, is that when you've got a demon, you need to take your sword out and cut its head off.
Yeah.
And so the difference here is quite radical. Instead of cutting its head off, you're actually feeding it. You're giving it what it needs so that it can transform and grow and mature into something that's more positive and more light
Advance.
and balanced. Yeah, yeah. So that also just I think like there are sort of like different categories of demons. So and I think there are even beyond what you and I have talked about today. But I think that this is a wonderful thing to do to bring some illumination to this area of darkness and how important it is for us to develop skills and courage to go into our darkness and be able to learn how to relate in the darkness as well as the light. So I really thank you for bringing that forward.
100% my pleasure. And I think this is one of the aspects of Earth is that when people see the light, and we've talked about this, entering the cave and being afraid to leave the cave, but the cave is a symbol of the dark because you're turning your back to the light. And it's almost when somebody's being demonized for bringing the truth to light, as you said, it's almost like they're blinded because you're shining so bright, because you're bringing something that's so obvious, but they don't want to see it, they don't want to hear it. It's like that monkey emoji. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And it's only being demonized because the unhealthy system has been normalized. But in order for us to truly ascend, for us to truly advance, we must face the truth for what it is. And it can be ugly. But in order to change it, we have to first acknowledge it, accept it for what it is, and then bring our solutions. Which kind of takes me to the next question, I suppose. Where is spirituality on earth, and where do we need it a little bit more? Because now that I'm looking at these words, how many businesses are actually trying to bring any of these values? How many businesses do actually have these values as part of their strategy? It's not that many. Or their inner drive, their inner motivation.
I think it's sort of in a baby phase at this point.
Yeah.
But like there's a growing number of business people that are wanting to run businesses from these kinds of values.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if you proceed to your next slide,
Yeah.
are you thinking specifically in terms of the area of business, or
In the industries in the world, I would say. I think
okay, well, yeah, there are not industries in the world that are operating from a place of spirituality. Like they would be like the odd industry. I mean, industries usually are classification for a large number of businesses. So I don't think that there are any industries because they are so structured and hierarchical and top down. Like, I mean, if you were tempted to look at, like religions, they are so structured and so
it's very
there's
interesting.
so much about telling people how to think and how to feel. So there's there's just there's just the shutdown in the existing industries. And it was interesting because I met with a former business mentor about a month ago, and she said, Andrea, what do you mean when you refer to a spiritual business? And I said, what I mean is people who are operating any kind of business, but it's from a spiritual place. It's from a place of wanting to make the world a better place, from a place of helping people to uplift out of a place of survival into a place of thriving. And I said, there's not like some specific industry. And she said, oh, that's interesting, because she said, I regard myself as a spiritual person, but I'm not running my business as a spiritual business. So this operating from a spiritual place with a spiritual mission and doing things from a spiritual place, that is very novel. I think that is quite new. Not saying that nobody has done it, but in terms of industries, we are just at the very beginning, just this, very beginning of more and more people saying, you know what, I want out of my corporate job and I really need to follow what I am meant to do. And if that means me forming my own small business so that I can work with people in a place that's in full integrity with who I am as a human being and is really uplifting their lives, then, I'm going to explore how to start my own business. So those are my thoughts, and I'm curious about what you would say.
I would say you used a very good adjective to describe spiritual thinking, spiritual people, and spirituality: fluid. And a lot of these corporations, they have the fixed mindset. Even though they think of themselves as growth mindset leaders, they are restricted by the framework they've created, and they are forgetting they're in charge of that framework. They can change the framework, they can leave the framework, but because once you set up the structure of the business, you're now running ahead thinking, I need to secure the jobs, I need to secure the opportunities. And it's the structure is fixed because you think that's it, once I've done it, it's done, it's settled. But that foundation, imagine if it's a garden and you've planted the seeds and the seeds are blossoming, and that's the beginning of the business. But that you can buy more land, you can expand the garden, you can change what you're planting in that garden. Doesn't mean that it's just being fluid with what you're growing. And a lot of people think of that business structure, business foundation is cement. And I think what we're trying to build with spirituality is we're bringing the seeds back to the soil. We're connecting with Mother Nature, and it's alive. The structure is alive. The foundation is strong because our roots are in there, spiritual roots, physical roots, but we're allowing it to grow as we grow, or there's this element of connecting with nature and co-creating with nature. And I think where
Yeah.
spirituality exists at the moment in industries, it's the industries that are trying to bring more holistic living. So there is some spirituality, but maybe people are afraid to call it spirituality. They're using the label holistic so that it doesn't bring a negative connotation, because I think people are still afraid to talk about spirituality as if it's something bad, which is interesting. But we're
Yeah.
learning.
Well, you also may be in touch with more holistic industries than I am, because I'm still seeing a lot that is, basically raping the earth. And I really love what you were talking about, using the metaphor of a garden and attending to it. And I like to add in the word organic, involving organic processes for forming our business is very important, because every business is going to be so unique that we really need to engage in organic process for developing our own business. And I really love that Matthew posted a comment there, regenerative agriculture as a start. And that is beautiful, that we do see some amazing things happening in terms of regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, absolutely. Agriculture, farming, these are aspects of kind of the new earth that we're building, but it's not a new earth. It's just returning to earth. Earth has always been there. We've just been blinded by all these buildings with the shiny windows and the shiny cars and all these reflections. And even this, we've created these roads to connect us so we can drive the cars, and it's amazing. It's allowed us to be more efficient, but there is a separation. Our feet do not touch the soil, they touch the cement. And when I realized that randomly in a conversation, I thought, wow, because one of the biggest practices to ground your energy is to walk bare feet on nature. And we have separated ourselves from nature, layers of layers of layers, cement and socks and shoes and buildings. I live on a very high rise building, and we work in these high rise buildings. And movies have tried to portray them as the new elite way of living. But is it? Or is it just an illusion of glamorizing that separation?
Hmm. Agreed.
So, spiritual business coach, how did you connect spirituality with business? What was the turning point in your life? And I think I've used the word here, the phrase taking leadership to the next level, as a way to describe raising the consciousness of the leader,
Hmm.
as a symbolic representation of what it means to lead from that place of, I want to bring more unity into the world. I want to bring more joy into the world. I want to bring more success that is not based on money, but it's success that is based on satisfaction with my contribution to making the world a better place, like you said.
Hmm. Okay. Well, as I said before, I've been a very spiritual person since I was a young child. And when I started um, getting into entrepreneurship, owning my own business, which would have been in 2008, so it was a long time ago, I invested in various business training courses, and then I started investing in pretty extensive coaching with coaches. And I found that the one thing that was really troubling for me was that I was doing things to do what they said to do, but they were not in alignment with my spiritual values. And so, of course, things did not go well. I was not having business success. So I think the real turning point happened in 2016 when I first met Ayman Sawaf. He was a guest speaker in a course on money. It was called The Currency of Money. It was a play on words, The Currency of Money. and he was a guest speaker, and I really loved his spirit. And so I reached out to him afterwards, and we connected really well. And for anybody who hasn't heard of Ayman Sawaf, he was one of the pioneers of emotional intelligence. So he is a very important person within our age in terms of the shifts of consciousness that humanity is going through. And so he introduced me to the notion of sacred commerce. And so he and his wife, Rowan Gabrielle, they have brought forward ancient teachings from ancient Egypt on sacred commerce. So apparently, from what I've learned from Ayman, in ancient Egypt, there was something called the merchant priesthood, where there would be merchant priests who would go out and engage the public, and there would be merchant priestesses who would be like back in the temple, and the priestesses would be doing practices to help bring energetic sense of ease around all of the work that the priests were doing in the world, so that as the priests would meet somebody on the road and talk with them and find out where they are at, and look at how they might be able to barter maybe some healing herbs for something that the person on the road had, to be able to get out to the public things that would uplift them out of a place of survival into a place where they could pursue their spirituality specifically. This very much has to do with the work that you're doing, Stella. So I really loved this model of the merchant priesthood that Ayman taught me about. And so in 2016, I started looking at how to practice that. I did find that it was a bit difficult to be doing both the merchant priest work and the merchant priestess work. So the Christmas before last, I was doing a retreat and put out this wish, this intention of gaining merchant priestess support so that I could focus on the merchant priest work. And in March of that year, I met my partner and business partner now, Eden Curvin, who's a long time, many lifetimes priestess. And I put together a PowerPoint presentation, which I presented to her. I said, I'd like to invite you to join my team. And, it was kind of like a funny way, but at the same time, it was a meaningful way where I was able to communicate, what the merchant priesthood was about and what I would really love for her to do and what I felt that such a collaboration could bring to her. And so she agreed to join the team as a merchant priestess. And so since March of last year, I've gotten to work with Eden, and I really focus on the merchant priest work. And so, it is very much a spiritual practice for both of us. Every morning, we do our meditation, and then Eden, she sets up a portal for the work that I'm doing with archangels, and I'm not sure who else she includes, but I do know that it is definitely with archangels. She has set up a crystal grid for our business so that our business activities are held, supported, informed, energized by this crystal grid. And so doing things like this have really made the work that I do on a day-by-day basis a spiritual practice. And the reason I'm kind of saying the I is because Eden, she does have a corporate job. So she works full-time as a project manager. So she is able to do this prayer work, very deep prayer work for my work on a daily basis of reaching out, meeting with people in the public. So that's what the spirituality part of the business part. And I have gone through various iterations of the kind of coaching I've been drawn to. Probably about 10 years ago, I decided to move into being a heroic leadership coach. And the reason being, I thought, if I can reach the leaders and be able to help them turn their heart into a good place, and they're going to impact all the people that they're leading. So I kind of wanted to go to the person who would have a lot of impact. And probably my astrology, I am just a natural leader. I have that energy in me. And so I did find that I love business too. So that's what really drew me to wanting to work with entrepreneurs, people starting businesses. So that's what has really transitioned things into my really working with people who are wanting to start a spiritual business. So again, a business that has a spiritual founding. The business can be anything, but it's just they're wanting to operate their business from a spiritual place, so that basically it is their spiritual practice. I love working with those people. And I think the other element that really came into my really finding this as my niche is that I first trained myself as a therapist specializing in healing trauma. And so I learned a lot about healing trauma and developmental stages. And I find that whenever we do something that is out of the box and takes a lot of courage, it can be very triggering.
Yep.
And so working with people who are just, thinking of starting a spiritual business or have already started one, but want, that hasn't really gotten going, they haven't got a lot of clients. I like working with that initial place because there are so many fears that come up. And with um, my therapy training, I'm able to really bring some ease to them being able to step more comfortably through those triggers that come up and be able to really shine brightly and really bring who they are. That's so important to me. After my experiences with the former trainings and the former coaches, where I was trying to be something that they said would make me a success, it has made me very much value supporting people being able to take their own hero's journey. That,
Mhm.
who would ever dream what one person's hero's journey would be? Only they can walk it. I just really like powerfully facilitating it. So does that answer your question about the
Yeah,
spiritual business?
100%. And it's very much aligned with your natal birth chart, but we'll get to that. It's quite interesting with the hero's journey is that it can be, as you said, so many different things because we each have our unique learning path, unique challenges in life, unique limiting beliefs that we need to uproot. And it's really doing that trauma healing because, as part of our own boarding on earth, we've experienced childhood trauma in different degrees. But that's just the way that the system is designed to create childhood trauma to block our ability to dream as we're growing up, essentially. And the system, the structures that are in place in the current system, they're designed in a way that they don't uplift you enough for you to dream these solutions while you're going through school or university so that you can create your own business structure, but rather you can be plugged into the existing systems where people can squeeze the talent, the energy out of you to manifest their reality while you're stuck kind of wondering, is this all there is? And I think your role is to tap people on the shoulder and be like, no, there's more, but it's here. You have to unlock it, and I can help you.
Yeah.
And that's the power, I think, when you have a spiritually aligned coach, whether it's a spiritual business, whether it has to do with the personal authenticity, it's adding that next level of of showing you that there's more for your consciousness if you're open to that ascension, to taking the steps forward. But it's always a balance. So, as you mentioned, the therapy and recovering the missing pieces that we lose as part of our growing up, it's almost like in order for you to ascend, you have to take that dive into the subconscious mind. And the lower you go into the subconscious mind, the higher you're going to rise. It's always it's the law of balance, I suppose, the duality, and even yin and yang. I know we say that for partnerships, but it's the duality within us as well. And the more we expand in terms of our subconscious mind and how brave we are to face those corners that society told us, no, you should be ashamed of that, you should be guilty about that. And the more we remove those beliefs, the freer we become to kind of become whole again and create from that space of wholeness so that we can offer that to other people, which is quite beautiful. And that kind of takes me to being a spiritual business owner and what it actually means. Because once you unlock that spirituality element to running your business, it's a general life upgrade. It's so much more than just running your business from that place of spirituality. It's you connecting with the version of yourself that you didn't even exist. You didn't even realize it existed. A version of yourself that has more potential fulfilled in this lifetime, which is quite empowering to know that you can accomplish so much more just by being yourself, doing the work every single day. But When you kind of guide people towards what it means to be a spiritual business owner, where do you start? Is it the abundance mindset? Is it the channeling? Is it connecting with spirit guides? What's the one aspect that you would start with? And what's the one aspect that kind of puzzles people the most? Because some of these are quite foreign concepts, even today.
Well, I hope that you don't feel like I am avoiding your question or subverting your question. But I really think that the place to start is to recognize that you are entering into your personal hero's journey. So that means there is no formula out there. There's no recipe. There's no place that is just like, you are safe. It's like going out on a voyage.
Mm.
And so, there have been put forward, the phases of a hero's journey. I think there's like 12 phases. One of them is acquiring a mentor. That can be an important aspect of taking your hero's journey, and also finding the true allies for your journey. And at the bottom of the journey is where you're going deep. You're like facing death. You are going deep and really learning about who you are and what it is that you have to give through your business. And then there's a whole journey of bringing that information back up. I love how you were, drawing the circles in the air, because that is very much the drawing of the hero's journey, which includes, going really deep to understand who you are. So, as I look at your lovely slide, it speaks so much to the things that you will encounter on your hero's journey. You are creating your own personal new earth through encountering your hero's journey. And you have to have an abundance mindset, because so many people, especially people who have been through trauma, they nickel and dime themselves, and they think, I have to do this all by myself, because of going through trauma. That's maybe something that we think that we learned. Oh, I have to go through this by myself. But in order to really create an abundant business, you need to be able to heal those places and enter into an abundance mindset, where you are investing in things like coaching or mentorship, or something that is going to support you in your journey. So we do need to have an abundance mindset in order to invest in the places where it's appropriate. And for everybody's situation is going to be different, and abundance mindset may mean a small investment, but it is going to be much needed support for being able to take that deep dive. I mean, because if you're thinking about like facing death, like that is really deep. This is not, as one of my former clients said, it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
So, you know, um, so basically, I think everybody's journey is very personal, and I think the place to start is to recognize you are entering a hero's journey, and to regard it in that way. And if you can look up those phases of the hero's journey, that might be a helpful little tool to be able to even engage with.
Yeah, 100%. And in the last episode we did with Avi, we mentioned that it takes a village to raise children, but it also takes a village to support abundant humans. One cannot do it all on their own. And abundance, again, it depends on your personal definition, because to someone, abundance might be living by the sea because, they spend their whole life up in the mountains. So they think, now I want to spend the rest of my life being next to the sea. So abundance could be anything. It's your definition.
Yeah.
But one thing about the hero's journey is, in relation to our conversation so far, is that it's used to create movies. It's the structure for movies. It's based on the hero's journey. It's sets the movie in 3 acts, and you have that redemption story by the end of the movie, if it's especially a well written movie. And one idea that came to mind as we were talking about the circles as well is that when you look at a tree, you know how you have the lines, the circles for every year that the tree has lived?
Mm.
That's us. The more we advance and grow, the more we expand our presence in the world. But if we're just stuck in afraid, we're just going to circle in the same life situation for many years and think,
Mm.
why is this not changing? Because it's up to you to take the first step and expand and go outside. Because the root is always going to be there. Your childhood is always going to be there, but you're always advancing. And It's very beautiful that the parallels between how nature is growing and how we're growing comes to life the more we look at nature, the more we reconnect with nature. But that's life.
Really powerful, Stella. And I feel like, if someone were to take a nugget away from this podcast, that could be it. What you just
Amazing. Well, I hope more people understand that their natal birth chart is a powerful tool as well to unlock their earth instructions so that they can grow and take those steps outside with more ease. Because it can be scary to be clueless. It can be scary to feel confused because the future hasn't been written yet. You're the one that gets to make all of these executive decisions. And if you've been um, someone whose free will was taken away at an early age, being given that free will, reclaiming that free will can be quite scary. It's very empowering once you accept it and say, okay, I make all the choices now, but it can be quite scary to make that transition. And so unlocking your soul purpose doesn't mean that once you unlock it, that's it, it's been done. You still need to take the steps, but the more you understand as to who you are and your strengths and weaknesses and what you can learn in your lifetime, the easier it gets to take more steps towards that self-empowerment and to truly believe in yourself. And so the 12 signs of the astrological calendar are the 12 houses that deal with different aspects of our experience on earth. And we each have elements of the 12 houses. We each have skills and knowledge within the 12 houses as well. And the way I like to start this part of the conversation is I like to look at your name. Our names, if we were to consider our experience on earth as pre-designed, and once we're here, we don't remember it, we start to unlock these memories, but our name holds information that, as part of the divine master plan, carries information if we were to look and analyze it. And so based on your name, you have a marker for leadership within the first name. So you're here to lead the way by paving a new path. And the middle name suggests that you have already unlocked the home and the mind as themes. You have already done the research. Your consciousness has already done the research. So you're going to be here to unlock that and invite others to explore their roots, to explore their subconscious mind, because that's something that you've already maybe conquered is the word, because it's not an easy place to conquer, the subconscious mind. A lot of people get lost there. And finally, there's a marker for creativity as part of your life path. So you're here to inspire others through following your passion and you being creative and kind of brave explorer of the world so that you can inspire other people to do that, which takes us to a life path number 10, which is the life path of achievement and recognition and career and public life. So even if you wanted to hide behind the scenes, your soul purpose will always guide you to that achievement because you have so much to give as part of your skills, as part of your knowledge, as part of your talents. Is that something that kind of aligns with your vision for your life path?
Well, I mean, all these qualities that you've said, they certainly resonate.
It's the path of achievement that maybe you've chosen, maybe it has chosen you. But there's 4 elements within our natal birth chart. There's 4 elements that make up everything in the universe: earth, air, water, and fire. And the 5th element is our soul. It's our spirit. We come alive when we embody all 4, and then we kind of ground our higher self as well. The magic happens when we understand that we have the earthly presence in us, we have the air presence in us, the water, the fire. And so with your profile, your sun sign is Leo in the 8th house. So you lead with the passion, you lead with the purpose, you lead with the confidence. And because it's the 8th house, your presence is that of transformation, that of change and growth and renewal, because the sun sign is kind of the person that you need to embody to achieve what you're here to do as part of the advancing your consciousness, doing that research to advance the database of your consciousness. And I think, we can call it soul, we can also call it consciousness. It would be in alignment with our higher self regardless, because our higher self is that potential. The moon sign points to the information that has already been stored, that's already there, that you just need to kind of unlock, but it's also who you were. If we were to talk about reincarnations and playing the game of life in different roles. So the moon sign is your existing identity, which is Gemini in the fourth house. So you're somebody that holds a lot of information around psychology, around the subconscious mind. That is just something that you probably have been attracted to growing up naturally. Like your higher self was always guiding you. This is it. This is it. Take the steps. And with the South Node as the existing knowledge paired with that moon sign, it's Scorpio in the 10th house. So you understand what it's like to succeed. The achievement side of life, achieving these big milestones, especially when it comes to creating these big shifts on an emotional level, that's something that your consciousness is very familiar with. And so the current learning path, the North Node, is Taurus in the fourth house. So with the Earth sign, with the Earth energy, this is more to do with creating these resources for other people to help them dive into their subconscious mind. So I like to, whenever I see Earth sign as part of the North Node or the Sun sign, I like to call these energies of manifestation. So you're here to manifest the products, the services that help people begin their hero's journey, as you mentioned, or give them the resources to do that journey with more ease. Because once again, it's not a very easy journey. You can get lost quite easily in the subconscious mind if you don't have the right assistance. And communication style wise, your rising sign is Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. So when people talk to you, meet you, you're gonna ignite that spark within them, especially you being a Leo in the eighth house. So every conversation with you is going to be transformational because you lead with a passion, you lead with a purpose. And even if you are just there with your presence, your higher self is going to inflame the other person to remember what they're here to do, why they started this journey. And your Venus sign in Capricorn in the ninth house is, your love language, or how you're going to form bonds with others on a deeper level, which I like to refer to not just your partners in life, romantic style, but also the business partners and the people that you collaborate, because we're here to grow side by side with other people and build side by side with other people. So the people that you're going to form these strong bonds with are going to be people who are looking for the meaning in life, who want to learn, who want to teach, who want to go on these journeys. The ninth house is almost as transformational as the eighth house, but it's one step more practical or grounded, I would say. It's a little bit more, the path is a little bit clearer. It might have twists and turns, but it's there. It has been created. So it's a little bit easier to follow the steps. Whereas the eighth house, you're going all over the place. But you're going to find yourself exactly where you need to be at all times. And so this takes us to your life path, well, not number, but overall view. You're here to be a transformational leader, teach and guide people towards purpose-driven success based on your sun sign in the eighth house and Taurus being in the fourth house. And then you're here to help people unlock their passion and use it to pave their own path in life because of the moon sign, which is an air sign, which holds the information around the subconscious mind, so which holds the information around the purpose and the passion. But the South Node being in the 10th house, you already know what achievement feels like. And if we want to manifest things, we must align with that frequency of success. So you're able to help people reach that point of their consciousness where they feel the success. They feel worthy of the success. I suppose that's a better way to phrase it. And finally, you're here to connect leading with your purpose and leading with your passion, and collaborate and grow side by side with other teachers and educators. Because I think on some level, even if you are a transformational leader, you're also a transformational teacher, because the information that you bring to people through conversating with them naturally makes you a great teacher, not even a great teacher. Any surprises?
No, I feel like this is an amazing gift to me. Like you've nailed it all to a T.
Alignment. It's alignment.
It's not a real skill.
but that's the beauty of it. I am just interpreting it, and that's, I think, one of the missions, I suppose, I have understood about my purpose on earth is to help more people reunite with their purpose. And you are an example of someone who's already aligned with that purpose. You're already creating so much good and magic in the world with your presence, and your story is that of that alignment. And I'm guessing, as you know, one spiritual educator to another, it's not always been easy for you to understand why certain lessons are coming into your life or why certain choices are coming into your life. But if people were to understand that this is information that's available to them at quite early in their age, or when they're feeling the shifts and they can look into that birth chart, they'd be like, okay, I understand. It's part of the learning.
Beautiful.
Well, I'm glad that you um, have found that confirmation from the universe. I'm just the messenger.
Thank you, Stella.
Thank you, Andrea. This is the point where I have to say, one is not born into their purpose, one steps into their purpose. And you have a very natural gift to be an adventurer within the subconscious mind, not get lost in it, and guide other people. And I think this is a very powerful skill to possess in today's world where people are going through burnout, they're going through awakening that something's wrong in the world, something's wrong in their world, and it's up to them to take control over their life. And I think the key is in the subconscious mind, and it's the key to aligning with their purpose. And that takes us to your masterclass, Kickstart Your Soul Aligned Business.
Beautiful.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I'm very dedicated to providing resources for free for people to be able to explore what can be possible for them with their hero's journey. And so the Kickstart Your Soul Aligned Business is a 1-hour masterclass. It's a recording, so people can do it at their own time. And it is just in 1 hour, you would not believe how you will be able to move to a very different place, a place of much more openness and joy around how to kickstart your soul aligned business. So it is a program that Eden and I, my partner, did together. So she is lending Merchant Priestess support for the journey. So it's not like a boring, like, watching a 1-hour webinar. It's actually like bathing within soul healing if you choose to. And that's supporting you engaging your inner self in a deep way, really getting to know who you are and why it's so important for you to follow your calling. So it's a really powerful 1-hour masterclass given by both myself and my lovely partner Eden, and you can't go wrong with downloading it. So, do you have a way of sharing the link where people can grab that?
Yes, I'm going to include that on the YouTube description. I'm going to link to your website, and naturally, I will ask the final question. What's your one advice to people that are just about to start their business and they're thinking about spirituality, but they're not quite sure? Why should they go that path, go down that path, or hide that path, up that path?
So, do you mean of starting a spiritual business or just starting a business?
I think starting a business, if starting a business with that spiritual lens.
Okay. Well, I really think that the most important thing is to carve out space to have the freedom to explore what could be possible. So much of life teaches us to, just sort of like cut things off before you even have a chance to explore them. But honestly, you've got nothing to lose by exploring what would be most deeply fulfilling in your heart. Not only do you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. So just carving out that space to really openly explore. That is my biggest tip for the day.
Beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. And there's an element of people being scared to be authentic. I think authenticity is not present in the school curriculum, which is probably something that's going to shift as we go into a more enlightened world in the next decades. Probably not years, decades. But what is authenticity to you? I said last question, but I love this conversation too much. So, what is authenticity to you?
It's being who you truly are and living every aspect of your life in alignment with your values and not somebody else's values.
And I think that's the biggest reason people should start their business with the spiritual lens, because it's literally them. They are showing who they are through the work they're doing, which is a very powerful way to exist, to just be existing from that place of, I get to give who I am and serve by being myself.
Yeah, you put that very well, Stella.
We did it together, Andrea. We did it together.
Can we high five it on the screen?
Oh, fantastic. It was amazing to have you on the podcast. It was amazing to exchange all of these big ideas and talk about some of the concepts that maybe are foreign to some people, maybe are not so foreign to others. But I think it's the conversation. It's opening that space for the conversation to happen, for the exchange of ideas, and making spirituality more of an everyday topic of conversation. We've talked about the weather for too long. It's time to talk about spirituality.
The work that you're doing is very powerful, Stella. Thank you for inviting me in today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I will link to everything that we've covered today on the podcast episode, and you'll be able to listen to the episode shortly on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Stella. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.